Azaylia's relapsed. And she's not only relapsed, we found tumours in her stomach, in her kidneys, in her spleen, in her lungs. And then they went, there's nothing we can do.
Hey, it's Jake here from the High Performance Podcast. I want to start by saying big thanks to all of our new subscribers. This channel is growing like crazy, but most people that watch these videos on YouTube don't subscribe, and it's so important to us. If you can just hit the subscribe button, it grows our channel. The bigger the channel grows, the greater the names we can attract. The greater the names, the more important the conversations and the more impact we can have on your life. So please, before you watch this video, just hit subscribe right now. It's a game changer for us. It's also fantastic for you. But right now, enjoy the video. Thanks for watching.
First of all, welcome to the show. Nice to have you with us.
Listen, it's great to be here. I mean, this is probably the only podcast that I've actually recorded that I was a listener of. So I was looking forward to this one today.
Amazing. So you know how it starts then. What is your version of high performance?
I used to always think that high performance was about your physicality, your God-given ability as such. And more recently, I've understood and I've realised that it's all about the power of your mind. Because I've never known how strong, how fast, how fit, and how far I could push myself until I went through so much trauma and I found so much love that I'm prepared to break every barrier that's in front of me in order to reach her in the end. So for me, high performance is all about your mental strength, your purpose, and how willing you are to get there at all costs.
So how are you like now? How are you today?
I say I'm level. I'd say that, you know, every day I wake up, I feel sad.
Yeah.
I feel upset. I feel angry. I have a lot of underlying anger, which no one would even really know about because I know how to control it well. The reason that no one would really know is because my objective in the world now is to try and affect everybody that I meet and everyone around me in such an incredible way to lift them, to encourage them to be better and to give them a better time on this earth with hope. So I guess I suppress a lot of emotions that I'm feeling, but I actually don't mind that. I think it's worth it. And I think with a lot of the training that I do, I call it daily humbling. It brings me back to earth. It makes me understand what the true importance is of who I am and what I'm doing. And it allows me to get through each day and appreciate the good times that I had, the good times that I'll have in the future, for the things I create, and just the appreciation for the people and the things that I do have around me at the minute. So I guess the answer is that every day is very tough for me. I finish every evening when I'm at home by visiting my daughter at a resting place. That's how I see my little baby girl now. But I do that so I can not only show her the respect that she deserves, but to tell her I love her, to tell her I miss her, and also to say my prayers to God to protect her until hopefully the day that I'm there with her again. I start my day off with gratitude, with appreciation for the 8 months that I had, because even though I went through the worst thing I believe a parent can go through, I believe I'm the most blessed man on this planet to have been lucky enough to father a girl like Azaylia. And so I show gratitude for that. I show gratitude for the family that I have around me so I don't have bitterness. Because if I had bitterness in my heart, that means I wouldn't only be bitter to everyone that's got what I want, but even my family, my brothers, my sisters. And I can't have bitterness in my heart anymore because all I want to do is spread the love that I have to so many people. So I'm hurting, but I'm here. I'm level, and I'm ready to kick on for another day, as always.
That's a brilliant phrase you used, Ash, about a daily humbling.
Yeah.
I think we could all benefit with a bit of that. Would you tell us a bit more about?
I think, you know, one thing that I found out on my journey is that there's so many people at the minute while suffering with poor mental health. If I'm going to be completely honest, I think some of that is warranted and some of it can be helped, can be worked on, can be conquered. Now, my point is that, you know, if I sat on my sofa every day after what happened, you know, people tell me, Ash, you deserve a rest. Ash, you deserve a break. Ash, you need to chill out. I'll be honest, I have 2 days off and I sit on my sofa and I wish I'm not here anymore. I'm bored. My mind's wandering. I'm in anticipation of what's going to happen or what I'm going to do. I'm worrying about what happened to me. I'm worrying about what's ahead of me. And where I seem to be in my lovely house in the countryside doesn't seem that lovely at all. So what I choose to do is, like, say, for example, this weekend, you know, tonight I'll be going home to go back to London. I'll probably kayak 26 miles through the night. I'll get up in the morning. I'll probably kayak another 26 miles. I'll probably kayak another 10 miles through the night. I'll get up Sunday morning and kayak another 26 miles. And then when I get back on Sunday evening, boy, doesn't that sofa seem so sweet. It seems like heaven itself. I think sometimes that we need to put ourselves through a little bit of daily struggle, a little bit of humbling. So we're not seeking something that's not attainable, but we're actually appreciating what we have right in front of us. I think it's necessary. I also think it's necessary because I understand that, you know, I've been in a place where I look for temporary forms of happiness, you know. Think, Ash, go out and have a drink. I'll go out and have a drink. It may be good for that hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, but for the rest of the night, the next morning, I feel like shit. Whereas I'll go out and I'll put in 26 miles through the night. It's hard, it's horrible, it's boring, it's monotonous. But as soon as I get back, I have this sense of fulfillment that outweighs and outworks any form of happiness that I could dream of. And I think a great way to combat mental health is not to look for parts outside of your inner soul that can make you happy, but really search within and build your self-confidence, build your self-worth, and become competent in being able to do what's necessary. And then I think you'll be a person that's confident and capable enough to walk into any room and feel comfortable with who you are.
I love the idea of building that resilience, that ability to deal with difficult times. And I think too often people shy away from challenge, which then doesn't equip them for when they can't get away from challenge. And, you know, for people that haven't read your incredible book, and let me just say, it's the first book I've ever read where I've read it in one day. It is an incredible read. It's incredibly difficult to read, but incredibly easy to read at the same time, if you see what I mean. And, you know, all three of us sitting here having this conversation know that incredible feeling of finding out what love actually is for the first time, right? Which is when you hold your child in your arms and you realise that you thought you knew what love was and you really didn't. And of course, we will talk about your beautiful daughter whose face shines out from that book, and actually whose like spirit and soul also shines through your words, which is really magical. But I think that before we talk about her, we need to talk about a life you lived, which in so many ways now on reflection looks like it was actually preparing you and building you for dealing with challenge. Should we share your story right from the very beginning, because it is a recurring theme. I mean, can we go back to the testicle? Can we start there? And,
yeah.
I mean, because that's the first.
Why not? Let's start with the testicle, guys.
People will be thinking, what are they talking about? But it was almost the first time in your book I was like, okay, this is a guy that has had to learn to deal with some challenge. Let's go through them.
Okay, so, you know, I was, at the time I was, 14 years old. I was ranked 1 in the UK for 100 and 200 metres in athletics. I was at Coventry City Academy with football. I was a budding young prospect, I can say that. You know, I always played an age group above, sometimes 2 age groups above, and I performed really well. Then it was the time to get my big chance to go to England schoolboys to play an international game against Turkey. I thought, I believed I was good enough. I knew I deserved it. And this was really the start for a lot of things to come and how things played out. When I was in the training camp with England, 1 minute it felt like someone just punched me straight in my balls. Like, that's what it felt like, or kicked me there, but no one was near me. And I remember just going to the ground in so much pain. And I was in so much pain that I had to go home. I couldn't continue. Days went on and I kind of refused to go to the hospital as I was scared. I was only a 14-year-old kid, Then the last thing you want to do is go to the hospital when it's something as private and delicate as the things between your legs. And eventually, like, my mom made me go to school. She said, if you're not going to go to the hospital, you go to school. Bearing in mind at this point, I couldn't even walk, you know. So I went to school, and straight away the teachers are, what are you doing here? You know, you need to go home. So my mom picked me up and told me they were going to the doctors. An interesting part about this is, I mean, me and Jake were talking about it outside. There's been a lot of embarrassing moments in my life. Believe me, there has been many. I don't think none more embarrassing than this one. When the doctor actually asked me if I'd had sexual intercourse before. 14 years old. Wow. I said, where do you want me to sit? He went, sit over there. Have you had sexual intercourse? And I had to say yes in front of my mum. After that conversation, he told me...
That's far worse than the pain in the testicle.
Oh, it was far worse. You know, I'll take that over and over again.
What was your mum's reaction?
Well, this is what I'm going to say. He told me we had to go straight to hospital after that. And it was the most awkward car journey, awkward and silent car journey I've ever had in my entire life. But anyway, we got to hospital. It ended up that I had a torsion. They had to try and reverse it, which it was unsuccessful. And I ended up losing a testicle at 14 years old, you know.
Oh.
Not only was that embarrassing, but it left me questioning, did that affect my growth? Did it affect my performance? You know, did it make me less of a man? All of these things were going in my mind at such a young age. And I couldn't go to school. I couldn't continue my football at the time. What do I tell everyone at school? What do I tell everyone at football? It was just a bit of a crazy time in my life. And I think that was the start of when everything good in my life was about to happen. It always ended in a big bang.
When your mum had calmed down, what was the conversation that you and her had?
There wasn't one.
It never got discussed again?
It never got discussed again. And then it was quite evident after that I'm a bit of a lad. And I've never really kept anything from my parents or my family. You know, I've always been quite open, quite honest and quite transparent. That's the way I like to be. And that's the way I am. I think if there's something going on with me, like you'll probably find out today or when I speak publicly or when I'm on TV, I'll just kind of say it how it is. I don't like to have no added weight on my shoulders because there's enough already. And I believe that, you know, by me being open and honest, it allows me to be free, true to myself, and know the necessary things to do to be able to build on the person that I want to build on.
The truth is, though, that actually freedom often can come from challenge because you realise how much, you know, you can take, as you said, on your shoulders. And, you know, people would think, wow, that's a nasty injury story relating to a football career. But if they read the book, they will realise that is possibly the least serious of all the injuries that you've got in your career. I mean, you end up at Coventry, right? Yeah. And, you know, obviously I've been involved in football for a long time. I remember your name being talked about as, have you seen this guy? Gets the ball, he runs with it, he scares defenders, he makes a difference, and he puts the ball in the net. And I remember at one time thinking, this guy's going to be a big name in the game. Would you mind telling us what happened once you kind of made the breakthrough at Coventry?
Yeah. I mean, one thing about me, I can never say that I was an extremely technical player. I wasn't. I was just an absolute animal. I used to punch holes in the defence. I was quicker and stronger than everyone I played against. That was a fact. I would say I was the quickest guy in football. You know, World Cup, quicker, all these guys. So, you know, it was getting to the point when I'm going to make my breakthrough. I kind of anticipated that, you know, I'm going to be getting on soon. I was on the bench at 17. You know, it was going to happen. And I remember like a series of games leading up to the end of that season. I think it was 2009-10, maybe. I think so. And it was, when was it? It was against, my debut game was against Charlton. I remember it so well. And my granddad that game, he put on a bet that I would make my debut, I would score the winner, and that we'd relegate Charlton. And the odds were something ridiculous, as you can imagine. I remember, like, you know, say it's like 25 minutes before the end of the game or half an hour before the end of the game, the gaffer goes, get warm. And he didn't say get warm because he wanted to put me on. It's because the last few games, the crowd had been chanting. And on this game, you know, the stadium was full at the Ricoh Arena and everyone was shouting, Ashley Cain, Ashley Cain, Ashley Cain. I was a local lad. This was my boyhood club. So the manager said, get warm. I got warm and I went on the pitch. And when I went on, I was frightening. You know, I was running, I was taking it to the defenders, I was putting balls across the box, and I was.
Was there any fear when you first came on?
Yeah, I felt like I'll be completely honest. I felt like I couldn't see properly.
Really?
You know, like when
What do you mean?
when you have like blurred vision, a bit like that,
Yeah.
and things aren't moving in time. I felt like things were moving slow. I felt like I was in a bit of a. It was only for about like a minute, but when I walked on, it was like I had a bit of blurred vision, and I felt like I was moving in mud a bit, and I felt tired. I was always extremely fit. I'd always win the fitness test at the start of the season, so and I could run box to box all game, you know. And I got on, and in the first minute, I couldn't breathe. I felt like I needed my second wind after 40 seconds. It was nuts. And then eventually, I just settled into the game. Because one thing that I found out when you play professionally, especially in those stadiums, the pitch is huge. So as soon as I realised how big the pitch was and how much space there was, I was like, this is my kind of game. And then one significant part happened in that game, and it was a life lesson that has stuck with me forever. One thing that I used to do is I always used to hit the ball with the outside of my boot. It wasn't a technique that they'd teach. It was a technique that all the gaffers at the time, old school, absolutely hated. I'd get slammed about it all the time. But when I used to come in off the right, I used to stick in every time that way. And then all of a sudden, I think it was Isaac Osborne gets a ball on the halfway line and he slips it through and I break through. Boop, 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 dusted the defender. Go one-on-one with the keeper. And it was that moment lasted probably about 30 seconds. You know, in my head, it was just going slow. And in my head, all of these things were going through. It was like, I remembered bending the ball in with the outside of my boot. I remember the training sessions when my manager's telling me to strike it. I remember all the times where coaches have battered me about hitting the ball that way. And I thought, if I hit the ball that way and I miss, they are going to absolutely ruin me. I remember striking the ball, the conventional way, and it just hit the end of the post and went out. And I believe that was a defining moment in my life, not so much now because I miss football and I wish I was still in the game. I'm genuinely not bothered. It played a massive part in my life, and it was a defining moment because if I'd have hit the ball how I wanted to and missed, I could have dealt with that. The fact that I made my decision based on the opinions of others and then failed, That's haunted me forever. So, yeah, it's a big thing. Anyway, I've gone into that moment probably a lot more than was necessary. But, I picked up my first injury at the end of that season, which, I broke my ankle, had it pinned. Following season, broke my ankle, had it plated. Following season, ruptured my quadricep, had a reconstruction. Ruptured between my groins and glutes, had a reconstruction. And then my last kind of break at football, because all of these things, I was either getting a move to Everton, a move back into the Championship to Derby, playing in the final at Wembley. All the big occasions that I had in football where I was about to make my break or rise to a new level, I always had a big injury, like when I had the twisted testicle.
And can I just jump in there, Ash, and ask, because that's a horrific run of bad luck. But do you believe it was bad luck, or was there anything that you were doing that was contributing to those injuries at key moments?
I mean, look, when you grow older, you always look back in hindsight and think you could have done things better. Yeah. But the thing is about me, I always trained really hard. I always worked on myself. So it wasn't like I was, not putting my body into condition. I just kind of think maybe I was that explosive that things happen to me more than others. I mean, it still happens now. A lot of the reason as well why I do endurance stuff now instead of other stuff is that if I went on a track now, I know 100% I'm going to pop my hamstring. I know it. I know it's going to go. And it doesn't matter how much stretching I do, how many massages I get, how less sugars are in my diet or anything. It's like that happens. It's just when I'm explosive, things happen. I played a charity game the other day. My body's as fit as it can possibly be. Tore my adductor.
Right.
Because I was moving quick. I think it's just my physiology. That's the only way I can really describe it. And then what happened last is, you know, after I found myself like I was on the sofa like 6 months to 8 months a year. And every time I'd finally get fit, everyone else is fit, I'd get into a good run and then bang again. So it was my last shot. You know, I went to Romania and I went to a team called Gazmetan Mediaș. And, you know, I got on really well out there. The game was very technical out there, but it wasn't so physical. So I went out there bigger than I probably should have been. You know, I hadn't really trained a lot, got back from injury. And I was probably I was a big dude, you know, but it played in my favour out there. I was quick, I was strong, and I played as a number 9. And basically there was interest from Cluj, what's the other team?
Bucharest.
Bucharest, yes, Star Bucharest and Cluj. And that meant that Gazmetan wanted to sign me. So I basically went on pre-season tour with Gazmetan, done all that stuff. And then in between my contract, it was a game and it was the kickoff. And I ran forward to get the ball that got played over the top. And I jumped up, I remember it, jumped up to chest the ball. And as I landed like this, bang. And I'm on the floor and I'm going screaming, get him off, get him off, get him off. Everyone's going, no, 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 no one near you, no one near you. But it was the biggest clatter.
So you thought someone had come through you and tackled
because
you?
it was, when I say like when I say the people from the other side of the stadium heard the bang, it was a loud bang. I thought someone had just charged me and just took me out from behind. And everyone's going, no one near. So I went to stand up and I flopped down. Then the physio ran over straight away and he held my foot. And then as he's putting his hands up my heel, and as soon as he got to where my Achilles was, he looked up like that at me. And I went, I've snapped it, haven't I? And he went, closed his eyes. And that was it. I had to get a taxi from Hungary to Romania. I had to fly back to London, get a taxi from London home, then get a taxi back to London the next day to get emergency surgery. And at that point, I decided that I needed to call it a day because, you know, I always say to people, you could be going out with the best looking girl in the world, but if she keeps on cheating on you, one day you're going to fall out of love with her. And I just fell out of love with the game. It cheated on me so much that it was no longer worth pursuing it.
So beyond deciding to walk away from the game, which I can understand having gone through that persistent track record of setbacks, what were you saying to yourself on that in that taxi initially once you've overcome the shock that your Achilles has snapped? That's a pretty dark place. I'm interested in the conversations you were having with yourself.
I was already trying to think about the next steps. As strange as that sounds, you know, I think there was part of me in my head that knew that this was always going to be the case because, you know, it wasn't like, you know, I had one operation before. I had a series of operations. And it was like as soon as I was peaking in my physical fitness, something would go wrong. There wasn't as much kind of science in football as there is now. There wasn't so much duty of care as there is now. It was still pretty old school when I was playing, so I really didn't know what I could do any better at the time. All I did know is that every time things are going well and every time I'm chomping because I'm that fit and that firing, something bad happened. I'll tell you what it was. It was very lonely. You know, the thing for me is I instantly felt lonely. And you know what? It's really weird you asked that question because I've never felt upset about this before, but it struck a bit of emotion in me because, you know, all my life, at that point, it's like at school, I got 14 GCSEs. I took 4 a year early. I got A stars to Bs. Even though I was excluded, I was naturally clever, you know. I was, you know, Leicester Tigers rugby. I was Coventry City football. I was England in athletics. I played for the town in tennis. I swam for the town. I could do absolutely everything. I thought as a kid I was destined for greatness in some way or form. Despite all the adversity that I felt at school, you know, I used to get attacked every single day in my school, you know, by children, by kids, men that had left 17, 18, 19 years old used to come and wait for me at my gates because of the colour of my skin. Because there was nobody like me in my school. I used to have to go through that like from 12 years old to 15 years old every single day. You know what I mean? I was fighting, I was battling. And then despite all the adversity that I faced, all of these things that happened to me, I believed that I was going to be something great. And in that taxi on the way home, I felt extremely lonely and I felt extremely lost because I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I didn't know how I could find a way out to fulfill my destiny of being great anymore. I thought I'm going to have to get a job in JJB. Like, and that's true. And also I thought I'm going to come back and, you know, I've got my home, I've got cars, and I've got no way of financing any of these things. And with an injury like Achilles, it's not like 2 months. It's like you probably actually can't walk for 8 months. The severity of mine. It's going to be 12 months before I can actually go and try and do anything without my boot on and live a normal life. So there's all these things going on in my head.
So your whole life at this stage has been spent with a really clear choice of either you can fit in and become one of the pack, or you can stand out and be exceptional. And you've chosen to be exceptional from a young age, whether that's academically with your results, whether it's physically in the different sports you're doing.
I've always wanted to win. I've always wanted to do as well as I can. I've always wanted to reach my potential. And the sad thing is, it got to a certain point, I think it was after my football, where that died in me. You know, I used to train with the Olympic gold medalists at 14 in athletics. I used to train Monday night football, Tuesday night athletics, Wednesday night football, Thursday night athletics, Friday night football, Saturday football, Sunday athletics competition. I was an animal. I used to train till I was sick. You know, I could bench 100 kilos at 14. I could run 10.8 seconds at 15. You know what I mean? I used to go down the town and fight blokes at 15. I just wanted to, everything that I did, I wanted to win. I wanted to be the best at. And despite the odds, like I said, I used to go to and from school to my nan's house, you know. And when this stuff was happening to me, mate, like, oh, imagine being a 13-year-old kid and you've got groups of 6, 7 lads in cars waiting for you outside the gate with weapons and stuff just because you're brown. You ain't done nothing wrong. And then that becomes every single day, not words, not just hurtful words, but yo, you're gonna be in for it today. I used to think, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Do I run the back way home from school, and it's the quickest way, but there's not many people to walk the back way. So if I'm getting a shoe in, I'm gonna get a proper one. Or do I go the front way, which is a lot longer, but at least I've got people there that could be around me. That was my decision every time. So I was running from a young age. You know what I mean? But I didn't always used to run. Like if there was one of them, two of them, I used to give it a good go. But I'm used to fighting and I'm used to being in uncomfortable positions, and I've been used to it since being a kid. So I didn't want to go home and tell my nan and granddad. They're old. You know, I didn't want to put them under that kind of pressure. They wouldn't be ready for it. I was. You know, and I don't look back at that and think that was bullying. I don't look back at it and wish it never happened. But the life that I've had to live, that was necessary. And that's how I take it. But yeah, the sad thing about my life is probably in the peak years of my high performance, I was nowhere to be seen in that vicinity, because after I retired from football, I just had enough, you know.
There will be people listening to this who can relate to that emotion, which is really clear, actually. But you're someone who goes again.
Yeah.
So if someone is in the place where you were when you were sitting in that taxi, and that feeling that you were going to be special had finally died, and you had to come to that sort of dawning realization that the dreams you had as a young guy weren't going to happen, what would you say to them to help them get out of being in that place right now?
Jesus Christ, I'm 32. Like, I thought that me being special had ended at 22. At 32 now, I know that I ain't going to be as special as I want to be until probably I'm 40, 50 or 60. There's no time that is too late, because you always have today. Do you know what I mean? So any words that I could say to people would be like, it's never too late to reach your potential. It's never too late to be your best self. And today is always the best time to start. You know, I would tell people to be strong. I would tell people that no matter what you've gone through in life, as long as you're prepared to fight for something, you will find light at the other end of the tunnel. You will find strength at the other side of struggle, and you will find your most powerful self at the other side of your pain. 100% fact. Because I look back to all of the main parts of my life which have evoked a form of greatness in me, and they're always through the toughest of struggles. When my life was easy, which was after my football career, when I thought I had everything, when I didn't give an F about a single thing, I was actually, when I look back, a pretty shit person that was going nowhere, that was doing nothing, and had no purpose in this planet. You know, like now, I would choose a bit of daily struggle every single time because I know what it evokes within me.
So you're talking about, having read the book, I'd call these the lost years, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I could see that at the time it felt like there was some purpose, but the truth is, reality show to reality show, nightclub to nightclub, VIP appearance to VIP appearance, getting a little taste of fame, which then fades away, working at David Lloyd, selling membership to make ends meet at the same time. This is an important conversation to have, because the number of young people who will go on Instagram, see someone fresh out of Love Island or another show like that and think, that's the focus for me. Only with real hindsight, actually, can you talk about the emptiness that still exists within you when you're living that kind of a life where your entire self-worth was dependent upon the phone ringing and someone asking you to be on a TV show, or a nightclub ringing to ask you to go and sit at a table and have some drinks.
I mean, I'm going to say one thing to start off. It was
Fun.
I
knew you were
couple
gonna
of years.
say that.
Good.
And like I always use, I like to use this word, sometimes necessary. You know, I love the word necessary because I believe, you know, like a lot of things in life are necessary, whether they are good or they are bad. I mean, if I hadn't gone through those years of my life of having such fun, experiencing such crazy things, I could probably, you know, end up having a midlife crisis at 50 and chucking it all down the pan. You know, I've got no urge for that life anymore because I feel like I've fully, you know, exerted myself in it. But what I would say is, and it kind of sums up social media at this day and age, as a guy in their 20s, you know, I'm doing TV shows, I have money, I have women, I am in a club 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, where everybody's coming to see me. I'm flying all over the world DJing, I have cars, you know. I was at the point I had a rental car, I had 10 cars, you know, I had a Drive R8 this day, SVR that day. You know, it was absolutely insane. And I just remember, like, I remember it like it was yesterday. I drove up to my godfather's gym, you know, to do a session, probably had a heavy weekend. It was probably Thursday at the time, still not recovered, but I thought I need to get a session in. And I remember parking in the Halfords car park, and I just put my head down. And I remember like a tear coming down my eye, and I thought, I don't know who I am anymore. It wasn't only that I didn't know who I was, I didn't know anything about life. I felt completely removed from the world because I had no direction, I had no purpose, I had no place which I could call home, in which I wanted to build on and develop and make into a better one, to see myself in 40, 50 years' time. And I'm not talking about a physical house, I'm talking about like a place of my own growth and my own direction and my own end goal. And it was very upsetting, and more than upsetting, I felt kind of humiliated within myself, because the reality hit me that at some point I have to grow up. I can't go on and do this forever. And when I look back at it, I thought, what have I really got to show for all of those years of doing that? I had nothing. I didn't have a lot of money as a result. I didn't have a legacy. I didn't have self-respect, self-worth, all the respect from anyone around me. What kind of life is that?
So can I ask you about the people around you then? Because everything up until that Romanian trip is rich in potential of you've got all this innate talent and it's manifesting itself in rugby, football, athletics, and then this same guy that recovers from that then is finding himself in reality TV. What were the people around you in your inner circle, your family that had been there and seen you, the kid that was being bullied and the lad that had gone through these difficulties?
Don't say bullied, but yeah, gone through a lot. Carry on. Sorry, I'm only messing.
Yeah, no, it's an important distinction. But the lad that had been tormented, I'm interested in terms of what did your family say to you that was different? How was the conversation different?
There wasn't necessarily a significant change in, I guess, how they treated me. I mean, one thing that I'm extremely lucky for is I've got a great family. I've got a big family. I've got a great family that is very loving, very caring, and always there when you need them. I think one thing about me and what I found is when you're younger, one thing I've always had a problem with is authority. So I've never had a problem being honest. I've had a problem with being honest if it's going to stop me from doing what I wanted to do. Now as an adult, I can be as honest as I want and transparent about my life or what's going on because nobody's going to tell me that I can't do it. As a kid, I don't think at the time my parents really knew what I was going through. And the reason I'll tell you this is because the reason why I guess the book is so good and it's good even before I talk about my beautiful daughter is because when the close members of my family read it, they didn't realize what I was going through, which is insane, isn't it? You think, and the reason why it's insane is because my family is close. It's not like my family is, a distant family. Everyone in my family is close. We are jammed.
But that's not a reflection of them, is it? That's a reflection of you.
Of course.
You, for whatever reason, feel that you can bear the weight of the world on your shoulders. 100%. You can carry it. You can be the lion of the family.
And I felt like that from a young age.
But that can be it can be debilitating and it can be really important to share, but also it actually can be incredibly powerful. That sense of responsibility.
Listen, 100%. I said yesterday, I was doing a corporate talk yesterday and people were saying, why do you do it? And I said, if we have to cross the water, I said, someone's got to jump in first so everybody else will find it safe. And, this movement I'm doing now with like childhood cancer, with the challenges, with mental health, with the way that I'm doing things, I'm kind of spearheading my own kind of movement, and I had to say this to people in my team, it got to, I can be like Jekyll and Hyde. Like when you see me, I give everyone a hug, I'm very nice, I'll try and help anyone. But if I'm in something, I'm an absolute fucking animal, like. And I had to tell some people around me before, I said, look, I really don't want you to think that I am nasty, that I'm ungrateful, that I'm a slave driver, like I'm any of these kind of things, yeah. I said, what you have to understand is, you might be feeling pressure now, but I'm feeling pressure on 50 different fronts. And I said, and all I am trying to do, I said, there's a wall in front of us. And I said, I will smash and I will crash and I will run into this wall until I knock it down. I said, I'll break my hands, I'll break my legs, I'll crack my skull. I said, I'll hurt myself so I can create a hole big enough for all of us to be able to walk through. I said, so I appreciate, what you are feeling. And I know that it's quite hard. I said, but just have some appreciation for how hard it is for me. And I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I just want you to understand how I can be sometimes because I'm trying to make it easy for everybody that's following behind me. And I guess that's probably like what it was like when I was younger. And what people understand now, there was a lot of things that I didn't say. There was times where I think my family a lot of the time misunderstood me, didn't understand how I was being or why I was being a certain kind of way.
Give us an example of that.
Which stage of my life?
Well, I'm interested because there'll be parents listening to this that maybe they wouldn't understand their children better, so they're seeing things.
Well, I'll give you an example of something that was in the last 2 years, if that helps. Yeah. So obviously when I lost my daughter, I found alcohol. Yeah. So I was drinking every day. And when I say I was drinking, I wasn't drinking like a couple of drinks. I drink a bottle of whiskey a day. You know what I mean? To the point where I became functioning like, you know, I could still get up and train. I could still do certain things if I wanted to. But you can imagine what drinking a bottle of whiskey does to your personality, to your character, to your demeanor, to your persona, to, you know, all of these things. It makes you a completely different person, whether you are sober at the time or whether you were drunk at the time. So I think at that moment, because I was probably in denial myself, because let's be honest, I can't even use it as an excuse that, you know, I didn't know who I wanted to be and where I was going, because I found out the man that I wanted to be when I wrote my daughter's eulogy and I spoke on the day. I found out who the man is that I wanted to be and the things that I wanted and needed to achieve. I already knew that, but I wasn't ready at the time to walk down that path. I didn't feel strong enough. I didn't feel capable enough, and I wasn't ready to make the sacrifices that were required. And I began drinking, yeah. And you know, first I was drinking, I felt like to get away from the pain. Then it was to knock myself out so I could get to sleep. And then it was just because I couldn't stop. And what I was doing at that time was, you know, my family didn't see me as often as they usually would. So they're always wondering what's going on, where I am. When they began to find out, you know, that I was drinking, you know, then that would cause me to lie about it and say that I wasn't. When I couldn't lie anymore, that meant that I would get frustrated and angry towards them, because I'd be like, you know what, I've been through what I've been through. You know, I can't even have a drink. I train hard, I work hard, and I can't even have a drink and you're on my back. I was trying to justify my drinking by saying that they're getting on to me and I deserve to be able to do it because of what I've been through, because of how hard I work. When the real truth is, I wasn't being honest and I wasn't being transparent with myself, not them.
Yep.
So everything changed about me to the point where it led confusion in the family, because, like I say, I wasn't being open, I was lying, and then all of a sudden I was blaming them, and it was nothing to do with that. And then the reason why I woke up one morning and I felt guilty, I said, I woke up one morning and I was in tears, yeah? I said, because if my daughter's looking down on me now, I feel absolutely ashamed. I feel fucking embarrassed. Because if this is the man that she's looking at as her daddy, it's no good. Not only did I feel ashamed and embarrassed about that, but I felt guilty. And the reason I felt guilty was because I felt, how dare you blame what's happened to your daughter for the reason you are becoming this stupid and selfish man right now? This liar, this waster. How dare you? That's not her fault. And then I decided to pick my chin up, put my chest out, and be the man that I want to be. The man that she deserves. The man that my family deserves. And the man that people in this world deserve. And that's what changed. That moment happened, and not only did I become truthful to myself and honest to myself, but I decided to be truthful and honest to all my family. Now, when your heart's already broken, that's very difficult to do because it hurts. It's embarrassing again. It's shameful. But I thought it was necessary again, because I thought after doing that, I was really at the base of how a human can feel. But only when you're at the base do you really know the true steps that are required to build yourself into the man that you want to be. Because guess what? I wasn't this strong man that I was making out to be. If I'm making out to everybody else that I'm strong, yeah, there's nothing else I need to do. When people knew all the faults with me, when people knew all my mistakes, when people knew all of my shame, what I was embarrassed about, then I could start climbing the ladder to be the person that they always thought and knew that I should and would be.
Some really interesting parallels here, Ash, with the conversation we had with Tyson Fury, where he spoke to us around how the Gypsy King is invulnerable. The Gypsy King has no problems. The Gypsy King can deal with any obstacle in his way, but Tyson Fury can't. Tyson Fury is a vulnerable, scared, frightened human being like the rest of us that is full of self-doubt and and fears and anxiety.
You've seen my Instagram, haven't you?
Yeah.
Ashley Cain. And who's the other one?
Beast.
And that's what I was wanting to ask you about, because like these are two very different images that you've adopted. And do you feel that the image of the beast, as you've described yourself, taking on these foes outside the school gates, the beast that was training as an athlete, the beast that had the crowd at Coventry cheering for you when you're warming up on the touchline, that's a great image to have externally. But how coachable did it leave you? How fulfilled did the beast leave you to be able to deal with those challenges?
It didn't, because I wasn't being honest with myself. The beast only has its true power when he acknowledges Ashley Cain. And how can I try and explain this? It's really strange. Did you see the video of Roy Jones Jr. talking to one of his boxers the other day?
No.
Have you seen it?
No.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
You'll have to watch it.
Right.
Yeah. But basically, Roy Jones is coaching him, saying, you can do it. You were destined for this. And the other guy's going, I'm not. It's hurting. It's hard. And I was watching it, and my mum was over my shoulder, and it's quite an emotional video, because this guy he's a titan, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? But he seems like he's not ready to carry on. Do you know what I mean? And Roy Jones Jr. is telling him he is, making him feel capable, showing him love, but also giving him drive. And my mum not had a tear in her eye, and I did, because at that moment it realised me that I was both of these people. And that was a really crazy, revolutionary moment for me. Because my daily battle is me talking to myself. And it's one version of myself talking to the other. And it's as plain and simple as that. It's, that one guy that procrastinates, that's scared, that isn't ready, that's hurting. Then the other guy, G'ing him up and telling him, let's fucking go. And then when you have the beast there, sometimes the other guy will talk to him and try and curve him out of finishing what he wants to do. But I don't think the beast can be the beast without Ashley Cain, and I don't think Ashley Cain can be Ashley Cain without the beast. And I think I'm a Libra, right? It's about finding that balance between the two to make the perfect remedy. Jordan Peterson says something about it, doesn't he? He said, it's about being a monster and learning how to control it. And he says that there's virtue in that. And I think that there is. I walk into a room now, and believe me, I don't think I'm the best athlete. I don't believe I'm the strongest. I don't think I'm the toughest. But the chances are that whatever room I choose to walk in today, I could cause an absolute problem in there. But the thing is, I would never, ever choose to do that. I would try and open doors for people. I would try and do things for people. I would try and help people, because it's like, I know I have the capability to be a problem, but I choose not to be every single time. And that's the person I like to be. I like those both sides of the coin.
I think one of the most beautiful parts of your story is that when you needed Ashley Cain to be at the centre of things, he was still... Because I think that you think that the beast is the strong one, the beast is the powerful one, the beast is the one that can deflect all the bullets, made of titanium. But I think it's really important you acknowledge that Ashley Cain is just as strong as the beast is. Because when your daughter started to get ill, and you had to be delicate and kind and compassionate, but at the same time you had to get the nurses and the doctors to buy into where you knew this had to go, and you had to support her mum, and you were staying in the hospital staying in the hotel over the road, and having to look after your family at the same time. Please don't ever think that the beast is strong and Ashley Cain is weak, because I think at that time you had to be Ashley, because Azaylia didn't need the beast. She needed her dad, and her dad is Ashley. And the strength that you showed in that time is greater than, I think, the strength that any of us could muster. So understand how strong you are. Not the beast.
I really appreciate that, and this is going to sound really strange, yeah. But in terms of like physicality and achieving like monstrous feats, I'm doing more now than I've ever done in my whole life. But the beast plays the smallest part in my life than it's ever played before.
Okay.
And you know what it is? Like, there is so many reasons why I will be eternally grateful to my daughter. There's so many reasons why I will fight for her for the rest of my life. You know, this little girl, you know, taught me how to be strong when I felt weak. She taught me how to be brave when I felt scared. And she taught me that no matter how you're feeling or what you're going through on a day-to-day basis, you can smile and you can make someone else's day a little bit better, because no matter what she was going through, she gave me the best time I had and ever will have in my life. But another reason why I'll be eternally grateful to my daughter is because she allowed me to be me. And she made me not afraid to be me. And the true, honest, and purest version of Azaylia Cain was at the forefront. And it was a really nice feeling to be able to, for once in my life, just be who I am, and just love and care and feel loved and not be afraid of what anyone else thinks. And, you know, she allowed that. And like Jake was saying, you know, I no longer think that, you know, the beast is stronger than Azaylia Cain. I think the beast has the potential to be so strong because of Azaylia Cain and because of the love that I have. You know, people always say about, you know, mindset and mental strength and all of this kind of stuff. You know, what's the reason for it? The reason for mine is because I love my little girl so much that I'm prepared to go through anything just out of hope that if I do, I'll get to see her again. Not because I'm, you know, stronger than other people. It's not because I'm mentally tougher. It's just because I absolutely love her with every single bone in my body.
I think sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to choose to really become something. I think sometimes people just have this sense of inevitability. I think maybe from a young age you had this sense of inevitability that it was just going to happen. Therefore, you had to deal with it. You had to build.
I had this sense of inevitability. I knew that I was put here for a reason. I knew it. I felt it. I've always, I don't mean like I've stood out as in I'm better than anyone else, because I'm not. But I've always been a bit different. And I've always been different because no matter what anybody says, if 1,000 people think one way and I think the other way, I'll always go the other way. No matter what it is. And I've always been willing to ride the storm. I know that by sometimes making my own decisions and by sometimes going against the grain, that it's going to hurt for a bit, you know, but in the end, it'll be worth it. And there's so many times when that's happened, whether it's been my school life, my football life, my reality TV life, and the life that I live now. Like after losing my daughter, similar to the football situation, but a lot different in the sense that, you know, I lived in hospital for 6 months. You know, for the first time in my life before having Azaylia, I built like a nest egg. I thought, you know, I want to do this properly. I want to be a great father, a great partner, a great provider. I want to make sure that my family has no worries at all. So I was building a little nest egg. I worked relentlessly. I worked very hard to build that. And then, you know, living in hospital for 6 months, I quickly began to understand, and this was what changed my mindset, that, you know, no matter how much I wanted to take my daughter's illness away, no matter how much I wanted to trade places, no matter how much I wanted to make it better, I couldn't. And that was a big moment for me, because that allowed me to identify the fact that I would give 100% to the few things that were in my control. Because, you know, in this life, we always worry about things that have happened to us or that are going to happen. We always worry about the situation that we're in. And a lot of the times we can't affect any of those things. And we waste that much energy putting onus onto all the things that are out of our control that we have no energy left to put into the things that could actually be the things that could get us out of that situation. And so I chose at that point to just control the energy that was around my daughter, be the best man that I could be for every day. Always smile in front of her. Never let her see me or sense me sad or upset. And by doing those things at the time, which I believe were necessary, I ended up having the most magnificent time of my life. But what I mean is I was so focused on that little girl that my businesses didn't matter, my income didn't matter, my work didn't matter, my jobs didn't matter, which left me in a pretty bad financial state when I actually lost my daughter. Not only had I lost the one thing in this world that means more to me than anything else, but I had no money left. I had no source of income. I didn't have a mindset or attitude at the time that even wanted to go out and get money. All I was focused on is extending her amazing legacy in trying to help these children fighting cancer, and in, you know, trying to help people in this world realize that no matter what you go through, you can make it out the other side. That's all I cared about. I was my manager's worst nightmare. You can imagine at the time, I'm fully aware, that in my life and in my situation, all glory goes to Azaylia. You know, all thanks goes to the amazing community. I don't think that I am someone now and I've built something, because without my daughter, you know, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Without the people that supported me, I wouldn't be doing this. However, as a result of that, like I was, you know, after losing my daughter, I was getting offered like £25,000 for to do a picture, you know, with brands. My management didn't understand me. I didn't take no money, because if I took like £25,000, promote this table, which I don't even like, and I'm never gonna have in my house, then how's anyone meant to take me seriously when I'm talking about how passionate I am for childhood cancer, for mental health? They couldn't. You know, so I got into a really bad situation because I chose at that point to be fully true to myself, to my purpose and where I'm going. And if things didn't fit into one of those categories, I didn't entertain it, to the point that it left me in a very bad financial situation where I was struggling to even be able to get food. Where I was struggling to think, you know, am I going to be able to keep the house over my head? To the point where, like, not only was, you know, like my management kind of worried because they knew, but my family, my friends, associates. And I just told them that I felt like I was on a divine path. I said to them that, you know, when you watch Hercules, the cartoon, you know, Hercules is walking with the goat man. And Hercules goes, you know, who are these guys? And he goes, and they're all the guys in stone. And he went, hey, Herc, they're all the guys that didn't make it. And I thought, I just don't want to be that guy in stone. I thought, I want to make it to Mount Olympus where I can be with her again. I thought, there is no way my daughter, being as special as she was, that her life and her passing will be in vain. And I knew what I had to do. And I remember getting down on my knees, you know, because at the point, you know, we started the foundation with all the amazing donations that people donated for Azaylia, but at that point we couldn't even access it. I gave my last pennies to start the foundation. What I had nothing else, because I believed that I needed to do that. You know, I used to go outside like Forrest Gump every day, running and cycling, no training plan. I didn't even know anything about endurance then. I just ran and I ran and I ran and I cycled and I cycled and I cycled, because I believed that my daughter was in heaven, in the sky. So I believed I needed to be outside so she could always see her daddy. And then I remember just getting on my knees one day and saying to God, like, I've gave my last penny. I give all my time. I'm going through pain. Please give me something. Because I want to take her around the world and I want to create a better life for these kids. But I need something to be able to do that. And I stuck it out and I stuck it out and I stuck it out. And then people started believing and things started coming. And I'm so happy that I did. And still to this day, I turn down 10 times the amount of money than I make. I turn down 10 times the opportunities than I take. But I always grab the right ones, and I grab the right ones with both hands. And I fucking make sure that I rock it till the wheels fall off, because they're the place where I need to be in the end, you know.
You've found the power of purpose.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's a really hard conversation. It's hard to get the tone right with this, isn't it? Because nobody wants to find purpose through losing their daughter.
No.
Nobody wants to have anything positive come out of that in some way, because it feels, you know, I'm sort of explaining it badly, but it's hard to say. Look at the things you've gained from a difficult situation when it's as difficult as
I can explain it to you.
Yeah, thanks.
I can explain it to you. We all have a purpose. If I look back in my life, with my mentality and my mindset now, after going through what I've gone through, I can look at before I hadn't lost my daughter and realise what purpose that I could have had. The only difference is I wasn't humble enough to be able to see it. Because before I had my daughter and after losing my daughter, my life was all about me. That's the difference. You know, I could be a person that wakes up every morning now and goes, you know, I work 7 days a week. I work 18 hours a day. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I go to bed at 12 o'clock at night. I'm tired. I'm in pain. I'm suffering trauma. I'm depressed. I'm sad. I'm angry. Why me? The only difference is I never asked myself those questions. And I've never had so much strength and been able to identify so much purpose until I humble myself enough to realise that my life isn't just about me. I said to people, you know, when I was down the cemetery, there's a little community there, yeah? And, you know, people were upset, and I understand, and people were saying certain things. And I said, look up at the stars now. I said, they're beautiful, aren't they? I said, those stars are 15 trillion miles away. I said, and the light that we see from those stars shone 15 trillion years ago. I said, and that's what we can see. I said, so who's to think that everything that you're going through in your life is so important? And that wasn't to be an idiot towards them. It's to make them realize that there's a huge world out there. Yep. You know, you're not the first person, and you're definitely not going to be the last person to go through what you're going through. Unfortunately, we're not unique in that. None of us are. We are all born and we are all going to die. That's a fact. So I just think, you know, life isn't never about what happens to you. What defines you is what you choose to do about it as a result. Now, so that's what I mean. It's like not everybody has to lose a daughter to find purpose. And it wasn't not necessarily categorically in losing my daughter that made me find my purpose. It was being humble enough afterwards to be able to see it.
Sure.
That was the difference. So
can we honour Azaylia's memory and tell us about her birth? Tell us about...
I'd love to.
Yeah. I'm interested in the relationship you had with her mum when you found out she was arriving, what that did for you.
Yeah, so one thing that people would have never known about me, I think they can see it clear now. I've always been a family man. So I've always loved my family. My family's always come first. You know, I take my nan to church. I was always the first person at family parties. And if I used to get free time other than work, I'd be with my family. That's just me. So I always wanted a family of my own. I wanted a big family. I wanted like 5, 6 kids, you know. And the interesting thing was my partner didn't want kids. Safiyya didn't want kids at the time. But I worked on her and I I told her I was going to be an amazing dad. I told her I'd be an amazing partner, and I knew that she'd be an amazing mom. You know, and we got to the point where we decided that that's what we wanted. And we're thinking of like names, yeah. So I had like loads of names for boys. It had to be an A. You know, you've got Ashley, you've got Alicia, you've got Anthony, Alpheus, Leon, Alexander, Abraham, Adolphus, all in our family, all A's, yeah. So it had to be an A. We had loads of boys' names and we couldn't think of a girl's name. So we went away and then we both came back and we had one girl's name each. And each of us chose Azaylia without each other knowing. I wanted to call Azaylia Cain. So I said, no, she's a girl. I said, I know, but I know she's going to be a lion. But we went with Diamond because that's my grandma's maiden name. So it was Azaylia Diamond Cain. Little did we know that, you know, Azaylia was going to be a Leo and she's born on World Lion Day. Crazy, you know. As well, I've got 2 older brothers and 2 younger sisters. You know, my middle sister's got 2 kids. My oldest brother's got 3 kids. And my youngest sister hasn't got a child. And me and my middle brother at the time didn't have a child. So I rang him up one day and I goes, Matty, I said, you're going to be an uncle again. He went, you know what, brother? So are you. And it was mad. And we're like, oh my God. And he was going, yeah, I know you're going to have a boy. I know you're going to have a boy. I'm going to have a girl. I know you're going to have a boy though. And he was like saying it disappointed. And I was thinking the same thing. We found out that we're both going to have little girls. And I tell you what, we couldn't have been happier. We couldn't have been happier. The maddest thing is, when I actually found out that Saf was pregnant, I remember I went to the shop and bought a pregnancy test. I just had a feeling, because me and Saf didn't, Saf didn't conceive easy. We actually ended up going to the doctor to see if there was anything wrong. Turned out there wasn't. We just obviously weren't doing it right. I don't know. You know what I mean? But the one day I went to the shop and I bought a pregnancy test, and she walked through the door and I literally opened the door and gave her, and I said, do you need a wee? She went, yeah. I went, please wee. I told her to wee and leave it in there and I would get it. And then I remember seeing it and it was positive, and I shown her, and I literally had a drink and danced the whole night. I literally just stood up while Saf was on the sofa and I danced for Saf all night, Then when we had Azaylia, it was the first time in my life where I ever felt like my life was, kind of complete, because I felt like, it's not like I had everything that I wanted, but I felt like I had that base there to work on. Like I said, that home where, you make a house into a home. I had that. I've never had that before. And it made me happy because not only that, like I knew that my dad wanted to be a granddad, and nobody wanted to be a grandma more than my mum. My mum was made, she was constructed, she was built, she was delivered to this earth to be a mum and a grandma, because all she cares about is her kids, So I believe that not only did I have the best gift in Safiyya, but my mum, so I'm a mummy's boy. Like I felt like I'd gave her the world there. And it's mad because, my brother's child, Azaylia was due first. My brother's child was born a couple of days before Azaylia. So we were planning like daddy-daughter dates, and, everything was great. Until, about when Azaylia was 3 weeks to a month old, she started getting a really stuffy nose. And this was during COVID at the time, isolation, lockdown. Couldn't go to the doctors. So, we ring the doctors, or Saf would tell the doctors she's got a blocked nose. He'd say it's a cold. We got the pipette thing, to suck snot out of her nose. But I knew I couldn't do that, because if my nan from the Caribbean, find out I was sucking snot out of her nose with the pipette, she'd tell me to, she'd say, put your mouth around there and suck it out. So I used to just put my mouth around her nose and suck all the snot out, because that's how you do it when you're from the Caribbean. But then it turned out that, nothing changed, and then all of a sudden she started getting a bloated tummy. So we rang the doctors again. He said maybe she's constipated. Yeah, not constipation tablets, nothing. Maybe she got colic. Colic medication. And I mean, all of those things that I've listed before are pretty normal things for like a 1 to 2 month old child to have, right? But one thing that I'd have to urge parents out there to understand is, don't let anyone pressurize you into feeling like you're a panicky parent, or that you're overreacting. No one knows their child like a parent. That's a fact. And we knew that there wasn't something right. One morning, Safiyya seen a bruise on Azaylia's belly, and it was a raised bruise. So in the end, 111 got contacted, and they told us that Azaylia needed to go into hospital straight away. So they picked her up in an ambulance and took her in. The mad thing about that moment was, we knew that something was serious at that moment. Your little baby's getting picked up in an ambulance to go into hospital. I still don't think I had any idea how serious it could be. And she had her bloods done, and it broke my heart, because I didn't know at that point what it was. But to hear Azaylia crying, to see them pricking her fingers and her toes, I couldn't stand it. I couldn't take it. And then her bloods got taken, and then we're waiting for the results. Now, me being the person that I am, so I'm always thinking, one thing about me, I'm always thinking, people might not think I am, but I am. I stood up. I thought, I'm going to stand up out my chair, because if they walk in and tell me to sit down, I know it's serious. I was already thinking that. So I stood up, and I stood up, and I stood up. A team of about 4 people walks in. "Sir, can you please take a seat?" Oof. Hit me straight away. I was like this, couldn't breathe. And then they told us that Azaylia been diagnosed with a very rare and aggressive form of AML leukemia. There was high risk and low survival rate. And, you know, when you usually pick up patients that have leukemia, they have like, you know, white cell count of between 30 and 50. That's even as adults. Azaylia's white cell count was 200 at 2 months old. I am at that point, you know, I have, and I'm not afraid to say, I've had a lot of shameful moments in my life. That was one of them, because I couldn't stand up, I couldn't function. I felt like part of my soul had been ripped out of my body. I was just upset. I was crying. And luckily, you know, Safiyya at that point was right by Azaylia in her bed, because I was useless in that moment. I didn't know what to do. I felt like the whole world didn't have any colour anymore. I felt like I was moving in sludge. It was crazy. And then from that moment on, we left from Coventry Hospital to BCH, didn't even go home, and that was our home for the next 6 months. You know, one thing about that situation is, you know, not only did our daughter have a rare and aggressive form of leukemia and was battling for her life every day, it was a global pandemic. We couldn't see family, we couldn't see friends, we couldn't go to the shop, we couldn't go home. We couldn't even be in the room at the same time as each other. And my bed was the floor, but the hospital floor is stone. I slept on the floor for nearly the duration of the 6 months. That was my life. And then what we did was, you know, I booked a hotel that was over the road from the hospital. And what me and Safiyya used to do, we used to like, "Hi, you're right, we switch in." Yeah, I'd walk down from the hospital, she'd walk down from the hotel. We'd go like that. "Hi, how's Azaylia? Is she okay? Yeah, she's all right today," or "No, she's not all right today. Anything that we need to know? Yeah, there's this," or "Not really." And we just go like that. That was our life. But like I say, you know, very quick, and I've spoke about this story, I began to realise, you know, Azaylia was admitted into intensive care straight away. They didn't think she'd make it out of intensive care. She did. You know, all the odds were against that little girl, and she come very close, but she made it through. And I remember that one picture with her with a bravery certificate. Breaks my heart, but you know, I look at it and I think that was the start of realizing that I had such a strong little lion, you know. And her journey was very similar to mine with football. Like every bit of good news that we got on that journey, straight away, bang, it was followed by something terrible. I mean, they told us that we were going to go through 4 rounds of chemotherapy. She'd have a week of chemotherapy, 3 weeks to recover, then a second round to start again. Usually at the end of every month, you get like 2 days at home as well, just to, you know, experience home. She'd done the first round of chemotherapy, which they thought that would be very tormenting on her body. You know, they thought it'd be very hazardous, didn't know if she'd be able to make it through. She passed the first round of chemotherapy easy. You know, no side effects. They cleared all the disease, and they were very confident. After the second round, she relapsed very quickly for them to realise that there's no point doing round 3 and round 4. She needs a stem cell transplant. What's difficult about a stem cell transplant is, you know, I'm half St. Vincey, half English. Safiyya's half Burmese, half English. So what they told us was that it's going to be incredibly difficult to find Azaylia a match because there's no match on the registry at the minute. At that point, you know, I rang Safiyya and I said, "Get to the hospital, because I'm going to the hotel and I'm going to get our daughter a match. I literally got on the phone to Anthony Nolan straight away and DKMS, the 2 largest registries in Europe and the world. And I said, I want to run a campaign for my daughter. And I worked tirelessly to put this campaign together. And I got it out there. And one thing that's mad is, you know, I'll be honest with you guys, yeah. I've always been disappointed in myself all my life. Yeah, because I've never ever reached my potential, and I've never really known why I was doing what I was doing. I thought, you know, what was the point in football? What was the point in reality TV? What is the point in all of my following that I have? What's the point? When we put the campaign out, you know, we had 80,000 people registered to be Azaylia's stem cell donor in one weekend. That was more than both of the leading registries in Europe had together in 4 years. By 2 weeks, it was nearly, I think it was 200,000, which meant that, you know, not only would Azaylia have a great chance to find a donor, but 200,000 other people now will have a potential match, which is absolutely incredible, you know. And we went into the stem cell transplant. I thought it was going to be some crazy like chamber and all of this. They just literally put the new stem cells in through a central line in the chest. But, you know, up until this point, you got to think, you know, the reason why I see life a bit differently now, you know, is because every single second of every single day, I was scared. I was in pain, but I was fearful that every single second could be my last second with my daughter. You know, more often than not, most of the times, I used to sleep in the hospital. I used to sleep in the hospital because I didn't really need as much sleep as Saf. Saf was absolutely incredible with Azaylia, and I couldn't have had a better partner, but I just didn't really need as much sleep as Saf, so I could do the nights in the hospital. And I couldn't bear the thought of nighttime. I got really scared of nighttime because I thought if I close my eyes, when I wake up, she potentially might not be here. That's how I learnt to live in the moment and appreciate every single second of every single day.
Have you kept hold of that lesson?
100%. It's made me be able to see life. It's made me conscious to the world. You know, it's insane. It's one thing it's taught me. You know, we only have the moments that we are living in now. This is a moment in itself. You know, it's a moment to appreciate, and that taught me that. And then, I guess like the point is, I used to stay there every night, and the morning times were the best times for me. And that's the reason why I am how I am now. At the minute, I can't go to sleep. You know, I have to have a hard day for me to go to sleep. I go to bed at 12, I get up at 4, because that's what it was like a hospital. I'd go to bed at the very last moment till I couldn't stay awake, and I'd get up early because I wanted to open my eyes to check if she's all right. And then the morning times were the best time. The morning times I'd open the blinds. She'd already be looking over at me, smiling. You know, I'd put the music on and we'd dance for a few hours, you know. And that was the most incredible time. But then going into the stem cell transplant, they told us that it was high risk. It was low survival rate for her. They told us that there was high chances of complication because you got GVHD, which is graft versus host disease. They said that the chemotherapy leading into it and the procedure itself might be, you know, too much for a child so young. It could take 3 to 6 months for her to engraft. 3 weeks, fully engrafted, no side effects, no GVHD. You're thinking. But you got to think at this point, it's done.
This is the cruelest part of the whole story, probably.
You're like, but I mean, I've glided over a lot of it. There's a lot more ups and downs, a lot of stuff which I have to read the book to find out, as you know, Jake. But we're like, oh my God, it's done. The oncologist is saying, you know, you can go home. You guys in Azaylia are now outpatients. Like, you come in, you know, once every couple of weeks, get checked up, make sure, blah, blah. But, you know, she's done it. We went home for a week. I was still, at this point, not very conscious of, like, you know, her having a lumbar puncture to check. They was, nah, you know, she's fine, you know, go home. So we went home and we got called back in for Azaylia to have her, you know, checkups. But this was a day where we're ringing the bell. So this is when you see on Instagram and Facebook and all these things where the nurses line the corridor and the kids walk down and ring the bell. That's to say that you have beat cancer. So we go into the hospital, and obviously Azaylia was very popular in the hospital. So pretty much every nurse that was there was waiting in the corridor for her. because everyone wanted to see her ring the bell. And we went in, and these are the little things that I don't talk about, but you put her in her best outfit, you know. You make sure you look nice, Saf looks nice, because it's a big day. It's like your wedding day, isn't it? It's 1,000 times bigger than that. And we went in, seen everyone, went in the room to get a checkup, to walk out, to ring the bell. And the oncologist walks in like she just seen a ghost. And she said, Azaylia's relapsed. And she's not only relapsed, we found tumours in her stomach, in her kidneys, in her spleen, in her lungs. And then they went, there's nothing we can do. And at this point, I pulled Saf and I pulled the oncologist and I said, we're going out to ring that bell because she deserves to ring that bell. And I said, and while we're going out to ring that bell, you better think of the next thing that you can do, because there's no way I'm taking my daughter home right now. I said, we've fought too long and fought too hard for this. So we went out and rang the bell. And then we come back in and I just said, what's the plan? I said, you have to understand. I said, I've been so kind. I said, I've been so considerate to all of you guys the whole way through, because I know how hard you work. I said, but if you think I'm a man that is going to take his daughter home now to die, I said, you got another thing coming. I said, so you better have a think. I said, because we ain't going nowhere. I said, she's a fighter, and I said, she'll continue to fight. So we had to battle and try and find new drugs that pharmaceutical companies wouldn't release. We got them, because I made sure we got them. We got treatment that they would have never gave us, and we got them, because I made sure we got them. And then lastly, we found, this place in Singapore. There was a few places in the world, but nobody would take children under, 2 years old. China wouldn't accept anybody because of COVID. So we found this place in Singapore which said that they could, do something with Azaylia. They'd had a success with a child that we knew who was speaking to her family. It was approved by everybody in the UK. So we got everything ready. So she had to have another lumbar puncture so they could send samples over, blood tests, everything like that. And then we found out how much the treatment was going to be.
How much?
Wow. The initial deposit was £500,000, and they thought we'd have to be out there for nearly 2 years. So basically, we set a target of £1 million for the GoFundMe, because that would probably cover the first year. That wasn't the full amount that it probably would have amounted to, but that would have been enough. I was actually planning then to cycle from the hospital in Birmingham to Good Morning Britain Studios as a fundraiser to try and raise it, and then talk on GMB. And what I ended up doing was, when I was on the way to the hospital, I ended up posting the campaign the night before, but didn't tell anyone. And then because I posted it, Saf was like, "Oh, let's just announce it now before you do your ride." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." It was the fastest £1 million ever raised on GoFundMe, and it went to 1.6. That goes to show, how much of an impact that little girl had to the world.
It was the smile, I remember seeing it, and there's so many GoFundMes. I remember the smile was what got me that day.
Yeah.
And I've heard that from a lot of people since. And in the book, that smile was always there, no matter what she was put through, and no matter what everyone else went through, she went through more than anyone, and still the smile.
You understand why people think that I talk in layman's terms, yeah? And I just talk what I think, yeah? And when I try and explain what my daughter did for me, there's so many different things, but it's just, I've never had a hero. And when you see someone in front of you that's, fighting like this, overcoming this, and then still trying to stand up, still playing, still smiling, still grabbing you, still putting you. She was like a tenacious little cute. She'd have been a nightmare, mate. She'd have been an absolute nightmare. When you're seeing this, I was thinking, what have I got to worry about? What am I worrying about? What am I concerned about? What am I moaning about? Give yourself a wobble. Do you know what I mean? And she was doing that, and it was mad because it wasn't just me and Safiyya and our family. I was getting thousands and thousands of messages a day that people was like suicidal. Like this, I'm just going through. People are going that they don't want to take their life anymore because they've seen what she's battling through, and if she can battle through that, they can battle for anything. Imagine seeing all this for the first time. They're lighting up Niagara Falls orange, like mad stuff. I got messages off The Rock, Carmelo Anthony, Lakers player. I just couldn't understand. I thought, this girl is shining light on the whole world that's going through a global pandemic. And then, so basically, we were going to go to Singapore. The maddest thing about going to Singapore is only one of us could have flew over with Azaylia. So one of us would have had to stay in the UK and then try to get over. What we had to do was we had to be clever. In Singapore, they wanted to use me as Azaylia's donor. They do haplo transplants. So even though me and Saf are a 50% match each, they believe that 50% parent matches are better, and they always believe that men are better for transplants than women. So I made the decision that Saf could fly over with Azaylia, even though it was hard for me to have to leave them, because I knew that because I was the one that was going to be doing the transplant, they would have to fly me over after, you know. And
what was that like at the airport when you?
We didn't get to the airport. This is the point. So we raised the money. We raised the money in under 24 hours, probably 12 hours. We're like, we can go. So we're literally booking the flights because we already had the hospital and the accommodation sorted. We're booking the flights, and the oncologist walks in. Can't believe it, can you? It's like a story. Oncologist walks in and says, "I've got some incredibly bad news." At this point, she can't speak. The oncologist is struggling to speak. You know, she said, "We found tumors on Azaylia's brain. She won't be able to fly. She can't have radiotherapy. It'll kill her. She can't have a lumbar puncture, so we can give intrathecal chemotherapy. There's too much pressure in her head and it will kill her. So we think the best thing that you could do is take her home and try and enjoy your last days." I'm saying, how can I enjoy anything like that? And there's one picture, I don't know if you've seen it, yeah, and you'll have to have a look at it. So at this point, you know, we're taking Azaylia home, and what was really horrible, when she got taken home, she had to be in an ambulance strapped to her bed, yeah? And you're taking her home for end-of-life care, and have you seen that picture where Azaylia's like this?
Yeah.
She's took a picture and she put her hand up like this when she's going home for the final time. Now, at this point, that was the worst part of my life, because no matter if she had 1% chance, I hung on to the hope that we had. And we were taking her home because it was inevitable that she was going to take her last breaths there. And there was no hope. And I was scared, and Safiyya was scared as a parent, because all the time you're with your little girl in hospital, you've got nurses, you've got oncologists, you've got people to come in and be there in case something happens. The reality is we didn't know how Azaylia was going to pass away. You know, Azaylia started cry. When Azaylia was crying and she was in pain, she would bleed from her eyes. She would bleed from her ears. She would bleed from her nose, because it was ripping apart her body. And I found hope again, because my hope was no longer, I want my daughter to live and I want her to survive. My hope was that when she passes away, I hope it's peaceful and I hope it's in my arms. That was my new hope. And I held on to that. And I remember, like, the morning that it was, me and Safiyya just both knew that this was going to be it. And we took all of her monitors off. And we wrapped our arms around her And I just remember, like, I just remember looking at her. And I go, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's gonna start, baby. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. It's okay, baby. 1. We're here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. And she didn't breathe again. And I never will be able to explain how that feels. I had to have medical attention, and because when we found out that we thought it was going to be the last breath, we rang the ambulance anyway, even though we didn't think they'd come. I had to get put on gas in there because I couldn't breathe. My whole body locked up. It locked up, and I couldn't breathe. I felt that a part of me died when my daughter took her last breath. It left me. Part of my soul left me. I wasn't the same person after that. And the maddest thing is, and I haven't really talked about this, is I thought it would be okay to keep her at home. And and it was all right. I'd still be my little girl, and, you know, I could still walk around with her, still put her in a chair. Weren't ready for the funeral directors to pick her up. I thought I'd just have her there forever now. I'll keep her there. You don't really see sense at those points. You're not really ready to accept the reality of it, and that's mad.
That moment in the book stands out quite clearly, where it's almost the first time the loss of control. Because I know that when she went into hospital for the first time, you created Club 100, which was total positivity in this room with this little girl at all times, which is credit to you and the family around you, that whenever you were with Azaylia, it was purely a positive experience for her. She didn't see the sadness. And then when you went home, and it was, how on earth are we going to get through the days for end-of-life care with our daughter? I don't think I can. Was flipped by you and by Saf and by the family to be, we enjoy every single second with her at home. And even when she died, the control was in our arms, how we want it to be. In the book, it's very moving when you talk about the funeral as the first time that you have no control and she's on her own. And I think for someone who lived controlling every possible controllable, that was the most moving moment, really, of the book for me. That, you know, at the very last moment, there was no control, was there?
Nah, that's a hard thing, and like I say, you know, in life, I like to be a person that, you know, can learn something from a situation for it to make me a better man, you know, no matter what it is. And like I said, even though I had new control, I made sure I found a new hope. You know, I didn't let it, I let it be that the thing that we make sure that happens now is that, you know, our daughter goes peacefully and she goes in our arms. Even till the day, like a few days before she passed away, we were taking her into hospital and forcing the hospital to take Azaylia so she could have blood transfusions, platelet transfusions, so we knew that she wouldn't bleed out from the inside. Because the platelets stopped that. They wouldn't take her. Me and Safiyya made them take her, so that wasn't the case, so that she could go peacefully. Like we didn't stop fighting till the last minute, you know.
But there's something I want to contrast two of those moments that. First of all, thank you for sharing them. You described that you felt ashamed when those 4 doctors came in and you'd stood up to prepare yourself for the bad news when they asked you to sit down, and your reaction to it, which to us is very human. You're in shock, but you described the sense of shame you felt. And yet that moment when she passed away, what is significant is you don't attach shame to that. Your human reaction of needing gas and air and being in such a deep state of grief, you accept that as human. And I'm wondering whether that's possibly the best lesson that you've taken from it, that you felt you had to be invulnerable in that first meeting, but what she's taught you.
No, you know what I take from it? I take from it, like, you know, do you guys play, what sport do you guys play? What sport?
Eating food.
Mine's boxing.
I'm in the gym, just going to the gym.
Okay, so boxing and gym, like, so say you're sparring, right? You're sparring and, you know, you sprain your wrist like that. Bang, you take a hit, you sprain your wrist. And then you go for the next 4, you've got 4 rounds to do. And, you know, it's a bit sore, but you're still putting punches straight through him. Bang, 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 bang. As soon as you've done your last round of sparring, you're like, fucking wrist. I don't think I sprained it. I might have broke it. You know what I mean? Like when I've done these challenges, I'm hurting, but like I'm fine. As soon as I finish, I feel like I've broke something. So the adrenaline's gone. That for me was that moment. I understand now what it exactly was. She took her last breath and she didn't need me to be strong anymore. And I just went. I'd been compressing how I felt for so long. I've been trying to be strong for her and everybody else for so long that I felt like at that moment I didn't need to be strong anymore. And that's, I believe, like, you know, if there wasn't people there to sort me out and check my heart and everything, I could have gone the same. It was just I completely couldn't. My body couldn't move and I couldn't take in air, and I wasn't taking in air. I wasn't taking in air at all. So if they weren't there, something could have happened to me that day.
I'm interested in how what you went through impacted your faith.
I mean, the whole way, like, during the journey, you know, and after losing Azaylia, it made me question it, because I thought, you know, if there is the good old Lord up there, how possibly can this be happening? You know, why would he do this? And I couldn't get my head around it at the time. But then I started to think, number one, if I am a true man of faith, which I like to believe that I am, then I would know that Azaylia is now in peace. She's in paradise and she's in heaven. She definitely made it to heaven because she's as pure can be. And she's in the place where we all wish to go in the end. I don't believe there is heaven and hell. I believe that we're living in hell because there's so many things that we have to combat on a day-to-day basis. And I believe that, you know, in the end, we should be working towards making our way to heaven. So that's what I thought. But the most important part was I sat there and it made me upset because I thought, you know, faith is the only thing that I have left right now. And what I mean by that is because if I don't have faith, I don't believe in God. If I don't believe in God, it means there is no heaven. If there is no heaven, then my daughter isn't up there and I have nowhere to go home in the end to be with her again. There was a lot of other thoughts, but they were the main two in my mind. Because if I'm completely honest, and you can take me as seriously as I say it, but regardless, it doesn't fucking matter because I mean it. I am fighting for the rest of my life out of the hope that if I'm a good enough person and I do enough good things that when I take my final few breaths, it'll be a beautiful moment because I'll be at peace, because I'll know that I've achieved enough to make it up there to be with her again for eternity. My dad said that to me, you know, you read my book, yeah? My dad said to me after reading the book, my dad's a hard man. I didn't even touch him till about 2 years ago. He would tell me he loved me. You know, we used to grapple, we used to scrap, but we wouldn't hug or hold hands or whatever. You know what I mean? The guy never told me he's proud of me all my life. You know, he was always what I did wrong, or I ain't doing this, or yeah, whatever it was. You know, after he read my book, you know, not only did he say that I should be proud of myself, and he was proud of me, and that little girl would definitely be proud of me. But he said what really hurt him and what's really sad is I'm living the rest of my life for the final few seconds. And the only thing I could say to him is, you're right.
Does that make you sad?
No. Not at all. You know, one thing I always say, people say, like, you know, Ash, you know, why are you doing what you're doing? Ash, you know, take a rest, or you don't need to, or Ash, you know, you've already done enough. I'm like, you really think I want to leave that to chance? I say to people, you know, if someone come and took, you know, one of your kids right now, and they put them on a cloud in the sky, you know, and they were there, you know, you could see them on this cloud, would you, like, you know, would you put your head down and say, oh, why did that happen to me? Would you wake up in the morning and think, oh God, I'm too depressed today to do it, I'm too sad? You know, would you worry about all the things that you had to do or that were going against you? Or would you start fucking building your tower relentlessly until you're up there to get her again? Or him again? You start fucking building, wouldn't you? That's exactly what I'm trying to do. That's as simple as that. That's as plain as I see it. It's hard for the people to understand because they ain't gone through what I've gone through. But to me, it's like a simple, surefire plan, like of, this is who I need to be now. And there is that selfish reason aspect to it. But there's also the aspect of, you know, if you've won the lottery, yeah, like, and you've won like 120 million, there's part of you that's like, you know what, yeah, I do need to give some to my family. I do need to give some to charity. I do need to kind of like spread it and towards other people because I'm quite lucky, you know. I feel a bit of an idiot if I keep it all to myself. That's what I feel like being the father of Azaylia and having that amount of love. I just think that, you know, I'm the luckiest man in the world to have been her father. And I've had that much love that even though my heart's broken now into a million pieces, there's a million pieces full of love that I can give to other people in this world. And that's what I genuinely feel like. I feel like I want to be a good person. I feel like I want to do good things. And I feel like that's the only way where I can see any real validation of me being on this planet.
We did an interview with a Paralympian called Steph Reed, who spoke to us about an accident she'd endured where she lost a leg in a motorboat incident. And she spoke to us about the psychologist at the hospital, when she was 16 when it happened to her, had told her that most parents don't stay together after a traumatic event like that. It can often drive them apart. I'm interested in how this has impacted your relationship with Azaylia's mum, but equally how you deal with relationships in other areas of your life now.
Yeah, interesting question. You know, I don't usually really speak on this, but to be truthful, okay, so if I'm going to be completely honest, you know, I will love Saf for the rest of my life. You know, I will be there for Saf and I will care for Saf. And I believe that'll be replicated by her. You know, we pretty much, well, we do live together at the minute, you know, it's like we're a couple, but not a couple. We're not like a couple because we have no future and we don't have a relationship. I mean, in terms of like we spend time with each other, we help each other out, and we are working at the foundation with a joint kind of mission of creating a bright future.
Yeah,
we're always going to have this bond because, you know, I gave Saf and she gave me the greatest thing we could have given each other in this world. But I think what it does is, you know, when life is smooth and when life is sweet, yeah, and when you haven't got a burning desire in your stomach for something, you are in a relationship, because a relationship has to be about compromise, doesn't it? You know, you have to, you know, put as much into the other person as you put into yourself. You know, you have to, you know, stop what you're doing a little bit so you can include yourself in what they're doing. And it becomes about that. I think what this kind of thing has done for me, and my relationship with Saf and going forward, it's not so much like I'm not available for people, because I'm available for my family, I'm available for Saf, I'm available for my friends. But I don't really have a joint mission with anyone else in the things that I individually need to do. I don't really want to go out for meals, and I really don't want to go out for dates, and I don't really want to go on holidays. That's not what it is. Like, for me, I kind of think that I'm a good man. I think that, you know, I'm a good friend. I think I'm a good family member. I even think I'm a good person to Saf. I guess the difference is I know that my journey is going to be very lonely. And sometimes when I can distance myself from people is because I don't want to hurt them, because I'm not trying to hurt them. I'm not doing anything to hurt them, but I can't give them as much of me as they need, because all of me has to go down this path to where I want to go in the end. And I think, you know, that can be, you know, I can't say what Saf thinks on that side of things, but I think for me, it's not that I don't kind of love everyone around me as much. It's just that I'm not willing to compromise on the person that I need to be in the places where I need to go. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm going away next month, you know. I'm going away, you know, on the 11th of July. I'm flying to Canada. You know, I'm doing a 1,000-mile kayak from Canada to the Arctic Circle to Alaska. World's toughest survival endurance race. You know, fatalities. A real good chance, possibly, that I don't make it back. You know, when you're in these big waters, these cold waters, these rough waters, you can't predict them. If you go in and you're drowning, you're finished. It's unsupported. If you get hypothermia, it's 2 to 4 days for any rescue crew to get to you. If you're in grizzly bear or wolf territory and they're hungry and have had a bad day, you're fucked. And me, I'm the least experienced person to have ever attempted the race. When I done the 125-mile race down the Thames, Devizes to Westminster, I'd only been in a kayak 6 weeks. They pulled 70 boats out the race that year because it was the most dangerous water conditions it's been since 1940. I was on the phone to them all day saying, there's no way you're pulling me out this race. They let me race with 30 elite boats. 8 of those elite boats didn't finish, and I beat some of the other elite boats. And I'd only been in a kayak 6 weeks. And the boat that I kayaked in was the biggest and slowest boat on the water. And it was the fastest that boat had ever done the Devizes to Westminster out of anyone since it started. And it was me that was in there, because I didn't stop and I just kept going forward. So going into the Yukon, I'm going away, and you know, as when I woke up this morning, as I sit here now, and as I go to bed tonight, I'm going away thinking that there is a good chance that I don't come back from this. You know, when I spoke to the race organizer, you know, he said that it's the real deal. He said that there's fatalities, you know, a lot. He even talks about in the podcast how one time on a specific part of water, he paddled past 6 bodies floating. So there is a lot of things that can go wrong, you know, as well. You know, I haven't even kayaked for 6 months. He's saying that you need 12 months to study the race. You know, some of these people that have done it and not completed it or died have probably been kayaking for 10, 15 years. So it's going to definitely be my biggest challenge, yeah. And, you know, most people around me, well, I think pretty much every single person around me has asked me not to do it and doesn't want me to do it. But there's something about me now, which is I keep the promises that I make. I said, you know, and I was a brave enough man on my daughter's day to stand up and speak her eulogy, you know. And I said I wanted to take it to the top of every mountain, to the bottom of every valley, along every road, across every ocean, north to south, east to west. I told her I'd take her there. So whenever I get a little bit scared or a little bit worried, I just think, whenever would I get to take my daughter from Canada to the Arctic Circle to Alaska? And I know that she'll be watching me, and I truly believe that I will be protected until she needs me back. And if she needs me back, I'm fine, because I can go home. And that's what I think. But I'm not planning on that.
That last bit scares me slightly.
No, what I'm trying to say to you is, what I am in life now is, I said, I'm conscious. So I don't want to go there yet. I believe that I've got so much to do on this planet. I'm going to fight, and I believe that I am going to come back. If I thought I was going to go out there to die, I wouldn't go. I believe that I am capable, my partner's capable, and I defy the odds every time of every challenge I go into, because I make sure that it happens. I'm fit, I'm strong, and I'm prepared. My point is, when you do these, for me, life and death it's just like this. It's like, I know that everyone that's born is going to die. I know that at some point I am going to die. My point is, when you go into something like this, you can't be under no illusion that it potentially couldn't happen, you know?
But you're not being reckless, because there's a thought in your head that actually, if that did happen, after all the good you've done, at the moment, you'd get into heaven. So if it happens, then it happens.
Because
you've
listen,
you've spoken in the past about, the drinking and then suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
And maybe even getting close to doing that. And I just think that we all have to be really careful that we are still protecting ourselves, rather than putting all of our energy into charity, all of our energy into going down the Yukon, all of our energy into physical challenges, all our energy into keeping the memory of those we've lost alive, that we forget that we also need something in a selfish way sometimes. And I know that you can't see that because everything's for her, but Ashley Cain also needs stuff,
Yeah, but the thing is, Ashley Cain is getting his, like, I'm going to say this, that, after, some of the things that happened to me previously, there is no way until, I've still got the seven summits to do. I've still got so many things in this world to do. I've still got so many people to help. I've still got to revolutionize childhood cancer. I'm by no means, and I really don't want you to think this, of anyone else out there to think this, because this is not what I think, that this is just a way to make it easy. It's not. I truly believe that I'm going to come back, but like everything else in my life, I'm honest and transparent about the reality of it. If I came on here and said, like, yeah, nah, it's fine, yeah, I'm going to do it, blah, blah, there'd be no point in the podcast, because I've got to tell you what is going through my head. I've got to tell you what I am thinking, but I've also got to tell you the driving forces behind what's going to get me back. Now, when you talk about Ashley Cain stuff, Ashley Cain is the person that is, doing these things, but also I get the benefit of feeling like I can help people every single day. Don't get me wrong, I'm also getting to come to some pretty cool places and meet some cool people. I still have my life, and I'm fully aware of that, and, my daughter's allowed me to be in certain situations that I would have never made it into before, which I'm grateful for. But, when I talked about being special and doing things, bro, I ain't even started. I don't think I've achieved a lot. I don't feel like I've achieved jack shit yet. Like, I'm literally just getting warmed up. And this is what I was going to say about when I was talking to you guys before. The Azaylia Foundation has done so much in the last 2 years, an incredible amount in its foundation, in its infancy. My journey that I'm on now only started 2 years ago. I'm still in my infancy. I'm not trying to, and I do not think I'm the best athlete out there. I don't think I'm going to run the quickest 100 miles, the quickest kayak ultra, the fastest 1,000 miles, anything like that. Because the difference is, if you've got like a David Goggins or someone else, they've been training for 10 years to do ultras. They're probably 75 kilos. People that kayak, they've been doing it all their life. My point is, if I'm going to run 100 miles, I train for 2-3 months. If I'm going to kayak 100 miles, I train for 2-3 months. With this Yukon thing, I've been training a bit longer. But my point is, I want to consume the world and know that not only am I nearly fit and capable enough to do it, but it's more, I have the mental capacity to drive through at all costs. And that's the power of me as a person. I'm 95 kilos. I'm a big dude. I'm not meant to run marathons. I ain't meant to do all this endurance stuff, but I can because my will is strong enough. And that I feel like that's what I take from this thing, not being the best, but being capable, being able to do it. And I ain't finished. I'm literally just getting started. So, you know, I want to make it back from this, and I've got credentials to go further and further again.
And I think it's incredible, but there's a quiet skill I'm interested in, whether you've had the time to practice getting comfortable with the discomfort of sitting on that sofa and just dealing with the uncomfortable thoughts. Have you had counselling since Azaylia died?
No.
Because it sounds to me, Ash, as if one of your coping mechanisms is to fill it with activity and this sense of purpose. And I get how powerful that is for you to be able to do that. But I'm also wondering whether that ability just to be able to sit with those uncomfortable thoughts is somewhere where you could go next.
What do you think? Sitting in a kayak, yeah, with no conversation, pitch black, no sound, no nothing. Do you not think that's sitting in uncomfortable thoughts? You think you not think then?
It is, yeah, but it's also still doing an activity. It's still with a sense of purpose behind it. And
what would you suggest then?
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just interested in that taxi ride in Romania when you've got a snapped Achilles and those feelings of loneliness.
Oh, mate, I travel back and forth to London and everywhere most days. I mean, look, the benefit, I guess, of I'm going to counter that. I've had this before, but you know, I am number one. I talk to so many different people. So you know, when you talk about counselling, I've never been to counselling, but bloody hell, this was like a counselling session today. You know, I do this kind of thing every day, different podcasts, different interviews. Even my own show where I talk to people about grief. I'm constantly, whether it's people on the street, it's not just family members or people that are close to me. I'm talking to so many different people on a day-to-day basis, either about their problems or venting my own, or talking about what I've been through. You know, I've written the book, I've narrated the book. I spend a lot of time in my life isolated because it's not like when I'm not working, I'm just around people. You know, of course I have moments where I have to sit on my sofa, you know. Of course, I travel a lot. Of course, you know, I have those moments where I need to be by myself because I do need to think. I go visit my daughter at a resting place every single night, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for an hour. I sit by myself and think. I'm always thinking about, you know, certain things. You know, one of the most recent things that happened is I went on holiday with my brother and my cousin, Tamika and Matty. You know, it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. You know, it was probably, since losing Azaylia, one of the best times I've ever had. And probably the first time that I didn't feel guilty for actually just doing something for me. It was a family resort. It wasn't a party holiday. And there was great families there. I'd be walking down to the beach with 20 kids. Everyone just wanted me to be around them, around their kids. And I really enjoyed it. You know, we laughed, we cried, we reminisced, we trained. It was beautiful, you know. So I do have, you know, my own time, but what it is I just have a burning desire to fulfill my destiny. And I think some people are chosen to do things. Yep. Some people aren't. Some people are chosen to do things and they take it and they make it. Some people fail. I just don't want to be the person that I failed, because even though you may sit here and say, you know, do you ever think you need to sit in your thoughts, or do you ever think you need to rest? Everything that I've done so far has helped people, has benefited people. And sometimes, like I said, yeah, your life ain't just about you. It's how much you can affect other people. And I always make sure that I'm in a good enough, strong enough condition to carry on fighting. And as long as I can carry on fighting, I'll keep swinging and I'll keep swinging. I can't swing no more, you know, because I believe that I'm here for a reason, and I want to fulfill that.
Love it. Final question. For the people that have listened to this conversation, your one final message really to them. We often term it your golden rule for living a high performance life. What would you leave us with?
I guess I'd like to tell people that hard times are inevitable. we're going to have to face them at some point. But I'd always advise people not to run away from those hard times, from that pain, from that struggle. I'd always tell people to face it, sometimes running head on into it, and learn how to embrace it. Because with a bit of persistence, with a bit of grit, and with a bit of fight, you will find the light at the other end of the darkness. You will find strength at the other side of your struggle, and you will find unimaginable power, at the other side of your pain. You don't have to be 100% every day. Just showing up's enough. Keep showing up.
You know what? I think obviously nobody would ever want to go through what you've gone through. And thank you very much for sharing, the real searing honesty of the story and the journey you've been on. But I sit here and I see a man with absolute clarity, total understanding of where he is, where he needs to go, and a rock solid self-belief that he's going to get there and he's going to change the world for the better. So thank you, God, for Azaylia, right?
Every day.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Honestly, I've really enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure. Two great guys, and it's an absolute honour to be on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Let's go, champ.
Hey guys, it's Jake here. Listen, before you go, please do me just one favour. Hit subscribe. It makes such a difference to us. The more subscribers we get, then the bigger the channel becomes. The bigger the channel becomes, the bigger the names we can attract and the more impact we can have for you. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe right now.